In today's video, we're going to discuss how to navigate the inspection period. In my opinion, the inspection period is the most important period of the contract. Why is it the most important period of the contract? Because you're going to go out there and make that last and final determination, is this property for me? When you were out there and you were walking properties and you walked this property prior to going under contract, you were looking at it as something you want to buy, and then you make an offer, right? You make that offer with the inspection period still in there and you still have an out. Once the inspection period is up, you really lose any sort of ground that you have to say to the seller, you know what, I don't like this and this about the property. I don't want to deal with it. I want you to either give me some money for it or I want to walk out of the contract. Once the inspection period is up, you're pretty much, under most circumstances, just limited to your financing contingency as your way to exit the contract. So keep that in mind and keep these tips in mind, and hopefully you'll have a smoother closing process and you'll be able to better navigate a real estate transaction. Tip number 1, pick an inspector ahead of time. Most real estate contracts, the sellers are going to give you 7 to 10 days for most properties to conduct your inspections. This means once you go under contract, you don't have time to go out there and start calling different inspectors, getting their pricing, figuring out how much they charge, figuring out whether or not they're even available, and figuring out what kind of inspections they can conduct for you. Is that enough time for you? Probably not. Remember, in 8 to 10 days, you need to look at a house from the ground to the roof trusses, and you need to determine, is this house for me? And is everything in there going to have what I need, and are there any hidden surprises? It's something that is a very difficult process, and it's very difficult to do in such a limited time frame. So if you choose your inspector ahead of time, guess what? You're going under contract, and you can tell your inspector, hey, listen, do you have any availability in the coming weeks? Because turns out that I'm making an offer and, next Wednesday, I would like to do the inspection. If you already have some communication with your inspector, you can get the ball rolling. I will tell you, once you're under contract, that's a very bad time to start looking around, because the inspector you want may be booked, and now you may be, stuck using someone that wasn't your first choice, and that could affect your decision making with regard to the property. My second tip when you're navigating the inspection period, remember, inspectors are there to find issues. Keep that in mind when you're walking the property with the inspector. By the end of the inspection, you should, most likely with most inspection companies that I've seen, you're going to get a 40, 50 page report that's going to have a ton of line items. And by the end of it, they're going to easily find $15,000 worth of stuff. A house has a lot of moving parts. A house has a lot of things that go into it. And guess what? Not all of these things are going to be exactly, brand new quality. So you're going to have items from $50 to $200 left and right that, are working fine, but the inspector is going to tell you or advise you, you know what, you may want to replace this, or you're going to have to replace it at some time. At the end of the day, they're an inspector and they want to protect you. So they want to tell you everything that they see with the naked eye. My advice to you is, when you're walking these properties, remember, what you're looking for is, there something fatal that I didn't see coming? Is there a big ticket item that I'm just not ready to pay? Or is there something that I thought, was a minor issue, and it turns out, it's not something that's going to take $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It's going to take $15,000, $20,000. For example, with like a roof, you may have looked and thought, well, the roof has a couple of years. And the inspector gets up there and says, well, you know what? Actually, they've been doing patchwork on the roof and there's leaks everywhere and you're getting wood rot. You're going to have to redo the whole roof immediately. And you didn't anticipate that expense right off the bat. Keep that in mind, and you'll have a much easier time, and you won't get scared by a 45-page report, and you'll, chances are, be ready to make a proper decision on, do I want to move forward and buy this property? My third tip when you're navigating the inspection period is, you don't have to buy the house. What do I mean by that? Well, like I just told you, you got a big inspection report and you're going to feel a lot of pressure. Well, I got so far. I made the offer. I finally got my offer accepted. And you know what? There's all these issues. And you're going to feel this pressure of, well, I don't want to give up on, I already have something kind of moving along and I'm closer to getting my house. Well, you don't have to buy the house. Now, what does that mean? Doesn't just mean you don't have to buy the house today. It also means you don't have to buy the house at that number. So when you get that inspection report back, if you're feeling uneasy, if you don't like the amount of work that it requires, if you don't think that, everything is what you thought initially was going to be, have that conversation with the seller. you might be able to negotiate a credit. So a lot of times I see where issues come up and the buyer turns to the seller and says, hey, this isn't what I bargained for. I want a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 credit. And the parties are usually able to agree. The other thing is, if you don't feel comfortable at that moment, you can cancel the contract. A lot of people are going to advise you against this. They're always afraid, no, don't cancel the contract. You've already come so far. Remember, if you cancel the contract, that means you've just exercised your right to tell the seller, I'm walking away from this contract. That doesn't mean you can't turn around tomorrow or the day after and turn to them and say, hey, you know what? We were under contract for, let's say, $200,000. I didn't like what I saw in the inspection report. We couldn't agree, but you told me you didn't want to give me a credit, but I'm still here. I'll offer you $195 if you're willing to take it. I'll buy it off of you still. And while the seller initially may not have liked that he's going to take a reduced price, he may take that offer. So you can cancel the contract. So remember, you don't have to buy the house. You just have to make the right decision.